TESOL Pop, Season 11, Episode 7. Hello and welcome to TESOL Pop, the mini podcast for busy teachers. I'm your host, Laura Wilkes, and if you've ever found yourself wondering whether you're good enough to lead a session or take on something new, then this conversation is for you. Today, Stephen Schmidt joins me. He's a professional development consultant with decades of experience in adult education. Steve shares his journey from sitting through uninspiring professional development sessions, I'm sure we can all relate to that, to creating his own and eventually speaking on national stages. We talk about how to push through fear, reframe failure as learning, and why you don't need to feel 100% ready before you take that next step. So if you're looking for a boost of confidence or that little nudge to try something new, you'll find it right here in today's episode. So let's dive in.
It really started for me when I began in adult ed many years ago, and I was sitting in the back of the room during professional development experiences, and I was really bored. Both the PD provider and all the folks who are in the PD seemed to be pretty bored, unmotivated, not really wanting to be there. And as I talked with colleagues, it seemed a lot of times that they would say, this is something that we just have to endure. And I was really disappointed with those first experiences that I went through in the PD realm. It really looked like fun to do, to be a PD provider. And I thought, I think I can do this. And after seeing the poor quality of professional development, I thought, I think I can do this at least as well as this poor quality of PD that is presenting itself. And so that was what really got me thinking about it. It was a few years from that first experience before I actually got into it. And I thought at the very least I could add some excitement to the mix, because so often the PD was, I'm so excited to be here. We're going to talk about, whatever. And it was delivered in that monotone type voice, which we all hate and is certainly not something we want to listen to. PD is so crucial. It's so necessary for teacher growth, for teacher development, for teacher reflection. And we've all seen great teachers and want to emulate them. And through professional development is how we can take those steps forward. And with anything, if it's worth doing, it is worth doing well. So I always want to continually improve my craft and be better at PD now than I was a year ago and 5 years ago, et cetera.
And it's such a powerful space, isn't it, professional development, to bring fellow educators together for an hour, let's say, for them to work on something and to share their expertise and talk about the challenges they're having. It's a vital space that we need when, for me, when I was teaching, I didn't get many opportunities to have those conversations with my fellow peers, and I wanted to have them. And the weekly PED session that we had in school was the time I really wanted to talk to my peers.
Yes, I hear that frequently. And in many PD spaces, I hear from instructors all the time, we never get a chance to talk with each other. We're isolated. We really do want to talk. And I have taken to, in the last few years, of always leaving space, especially if I'm doing a longer experience, leave space at the end for more of an unstructured time where instructors can talk with each other, share successes, share some challenges, ask questions. And there's always usually someone that's new in the field that can really benefit from discussions like that. I did a 3-hour pre-conference session a few weeks ago, and then we spent the last about 30 minutes doing that. And I think it was the best part of the whole PD experience.
That's incredible. So you went on this journey that I think a lot of listeners, myself included, can relate to, of sitting in spaces where you're like, oh, this isn't what I need. I could do this. I'm going to give it a go. But you said it took a few years going from that thought to then actually stepping and taking the reins to lead a workshop or a session of sorts. How did you make that move? What did that transfer look like?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. That's a great question. It's really a series of baby steps. And I remember back years ago, this was about 30 years ago, of doing the first professional development in my local program. And I organized a Saturday professional development session on math. And that was the first experience I have of leading a session and bringing in others to do workshop sessions as well. So I went from local to state to other states. And then I've had in the last 10 years or so the opportunities to present at national conferences. A lot of the journey is really trying different things, seeing what you like and seeing what you don't like. And in my journey, yeah, I spent many years as an instructor, and then I went as a local program administrator, an administrative role, and found that that was what I really did not like to do. And at the end of that 5.5 years experience, I was burned out. I really wanted to get out of adult education at that time. But I did have the opportunity then to come to do professional development full time when I went to work at the university. And that was an intimidating experience at first. I wasn't really sure that I had the expertise, the qualifications, the background to present, to come as an expert presenter, so to speak. And especially since I'd spent several years on the admin side.
That's so relatable. I think we all experience that, don't we? Whenever we're doing something new, if we feel that, oh, we don't quite have enough experience or skills, or I haven't done something as similar as this, so I'm not going to be as good at it, and therefore I may not try it. I think that is actually a big barrier that we face on a day-to-day basis in everything we do. And I'm interested to hear that this is still, I mean, you're still challenging yourself and taking on big, keynotes, for example, and that's brilliant. And I wonder, like, how do you kind of push past those thoughts that you mentioned that are so present with everything we do? We're taking on a new challenge, whether it's the first time or just scaling up a challenge, in the case of taking on bigger keynote opportunities. How do you move past that? Because that inner voice, that inner troll, can be really powerful at times.
It is, yes. And I hear that troll speaking frequently. And I'd have to say, after having listened to some of the guests on your podcast, they are really doing brave things. So I know there's a lot of people out there that really have this mastered and some that are looking for this. But I love some research that I had come across a few years ago from Dr. Susan Jeffers, and her last name is Jeffers, Dr. Susan Jeffers. And she talks about the 5 truths of fear. And after I read that, I thought, wow, she is really onto something. Her first truth is the fear will never go away as long as I continue to grow. And I think we suffer from the misconception that, if we do brave things, the fear goes away. And I don't think that's true. When we step outside our comfort zone, I don't care who you always are going to experience some fear. And that's a good thing. Because when we see that fear, when we feel that fear, we are growing and we are becoming a better person, and we are becoming more like the person that we really want to be. And that's a great thing. So I think if we are feeling that fear and experiencing that fear, we're on the right track. That's a good thing. Dr. Jeffers also talked about another truth was, not only am I going to experience fear whenever I'm on unfamiliar territory, so is everyone else. We look at the keynote presenter that seems to be polished and have everything under control, but they're afraid too. They're afraid every single time that they go out, no matter who they are, no matter how many followers they have, no matter what their footprint is like, they have fear too. And so, everyone has that fear. It's just some people are better at dealing with it than others. And I think the more times we face the fear, the better we get at dealing with it. And then Dr. Jeffers concludes with saying, pushing through fear is less frightening than living with the underlying fear that comes from helplessness. And when we don't face the fear, we do get those fears of helplessness. To sum up, I would just say it's always better to face the fear and do it anyways. And even if we do this thing, we decide we don't like it, that's an opportunity for learning and growth, or I like to call them O flags, opportunity for learning and growth. We did this, we didn't like it. Great, we learned something about ourselves, and that helps to push us toward the path that we need to be on.
I think that's really a powerful note to end on, that if we do experience what we may see as failure, it's not failure at all. And I think that reframing of going into something, taking on a challenge, and okay, it's going to be the first time you do it and you're learning, and that's okay. And it won't go perfectly. And maybe some things won't go as planned, but that's an opportunity for learning. You called it an O flag, right?
Yeah, opportunity for learning and growth. And I love the way you said that, because it's really, reframing is really the key, because so many times we're quick to badmouth ourselves. And many times in our inner dialogue, we talk a lot more negatively about ourselves than we would allow any person in our lives to talk about us like that. But we say that's okay when our inner dialogue is saying those bad things about ourselves. And so I try to reframe any situation where I have quote unquote failed or not met expectations, but I've learned along the way. And sometimes there are lessons that we can only learn through those experiences where we failed. There's no other way we're going to get those lessons, or they won't come across as powerfully as they do when we experience those situations. So instead of saying, I have failed, we can instead say, I've learned. And that's a lot more comforting, and that's a lot better for our self-esteem and our psyches than to say, oh, I'm a failure.
The funny thing is, listeners of this podcast are passionate educators and they're excellent at facilitating this type of mindset with their learners. But yet, as educators ourselves, and I speak for myself as well as now a business owner, we often don't extend that same sort of grace to ourselves that we extend to our clients, our students, or whoever we're working with. It's like, yes, why don't I talk to myself like I talk to my students in the case of the listeners? It just makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. And I remember earlier in my career when I would do a PD session, I would look at evaluations and I might have 24 that's out of, if there, maybe there are 25 teachers in the room, and 24 of the evaluations were really good. I would focus on the one evaluation that was not as good. And that's not good. That's not healthy to do.
Steve, it's been really empowering to talk to you today and to get these insights and to also hear your experience. I think it's really helpful to kind of open the door into our own thinking, because like you say, when we see keynote speakers and people like yourself, seasoned professional development leaders, you mentioned earlier that the fear doesn't go away. You just get better at managing it. And that's so powerful, because the perception is when we look at experienced people like yourself, it's like, oh, they must do it without the fear at all. So why am I still feeling this? And I think that's so powerful to say that. I would love to share with listeners where they can find out more and follow your journey. Could you tell us where they can find you?
The best way to get in touch with me is email. I have found through my career, I can't say that I have a big social media following. I'm active on LinkedIn, but that's pretty much it. I do not have a wonderful website. And most of the work that I have been able to get is through the connections that I have made with people over the years. And that's where my business has come through. But really, the best way that you could get in touch with me is via email. And that would be schmidtconsulting4@gmail.com.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Steve. And as always, I'm going to include that link easily so folk can find that and contact you to find out more.
Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you having me on.
So folk, if you would like to contact Steve, I've included details in the show notes as always. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic for us to talk about in the podcast, you can reach out to us on the website, tsopop.com. Finally, support the work we do here at TSOPOP by leaving a rating review wherever you listen to the podcast, by sharing today's episode to continue the conversation with fellow teachers, or by even buying us a coffee by going to ko-fi.com/TSOPOP.